Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Enrich Your Business Circle podcast. I'm your host, Rickdrika Bennett, and I am so excited to be able to sit down and talk to an innovative business leader in the space of AI. Today is truly going to be fascinating because we have a fascinating guest who has not only built a successful company, but also has made a monumental pivot to address one of the biggest technological shifts of our time. Our guest is John Munsell. John, welcome.
Rick Rika, thank you for having me on. It's great to meet you. I've been watching your stuff, get a really big kick out of what you do. So it's fun to be on your show.
Thank you. So, John, you are a co-founder and a CEO of Bizzuka, and then you also are an author as well. And you've led your company to basically have multiple appearances on the Inc. 500. So, could you kind of tell us about that experience and more about your background with your software and digital marketing? Because I know you've been in that space for over 20 years as well.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of time. Yeah, actually, it was the Inc. 5000, not the 500. We were close one time, but it didn't quite make the 500, but we did make the 5,000, which three times or four times, I can't remember which. But that so what happened was in my prior life, I was in financial services for like 16 years,
Okay.
and then the web started to come out, and I thought, oh, that's a fun frontier. It kind of it tapped everything, right? I got a minor in marketing and a major in finance, and here I was in banking, and then we wrote some software for the bank, and then we ended up
Mhm.
selling it in direct mail back in the early '80s, and actually, I'm sorry, early '90s. So I learned direct mail marketing. I learned how to write direct response copy,
Okay.
and then that was kind of fun, because I was like, oh, look, mailbox money, you mail something out and the checks come back. And then when the web started to come out, I was like, oh, wow, you could really do some stuff with this. And so I built an intranet for our regional office, just playing around with it in 96. And then the next thing you know, I had some people call me and said, hey, I'm thinking about building a website. You want to, build one for me? And I was like, yeah. And then I found out that was a whole lot more fun than what I was doing. So I ejected and started a company that would build web applications. And that was in 97. And we grew that company. And then um, we built a web content management system back when you had to build a website from the first line of code up. There was no such thing. So we built one and we licensed it to people. And that was the problem that we solved. We made it easy for people to manage a website. And then in 2003, we relocated to Lafayette, Louisiana. We started in Tampa and relocated to Lafayette, where my wife is from. And gradually grew it into a mobile application company and then a digital marketing agency, and so we were doing all that stuff. But then um, around 2022, early 2023, we started playing around with some of the early AI tools, like Jarvis, which is now Jasper, and
Jasper,
Copy
yeah.
AI. And I thought, okay, well, this is getting interesting, but it still kind of talks in circles. But it's pretty cool how rapidly it would produce content. So, at least it got you off from working from a blank sheet of paper really quickly. But then, like with everybody else, when ChatGPT came out, I realized, okay, they've really taken off the training wheels now. This is pretty powerful. And I had sold off the agency side of the business earlier than that, and with the idea that my wife and I were about to become empty nesters. Famous last words from anybody who has kids, uh, but we thought, oh, this would be good. We could travel. We could go see the kids wherever they are, and I'll trim down from a high of 40 employees. I went to 2.5, and I had to use AI to kind of make up for the assistance that I didn't have. And I started a thing called the CXO AI Roundtable. Originally, it was just the CXO Roundtable, with the idea that I would learn what the market's problems were by working with CEOs every Friday for about an hour. And then I found that they were more interested in how I was doing all this stuff. And I was showing them AI, and then I would show them how to do stuff in AI. And then I realized, oh, that's the problem the market wants solved. How do we
Okay.
use AI in a business context? Everybody else was teaching what I call parlor tricks, you know. But then I started to develop frameworks to make it really easy for somebody to understand what kind of context AI needs in order to produce the best result. And I developed this thing called the AI strategy canvas.
Okay.
And when I showed that to people, all of a sudden, man, all the light bulbs just clicked on for everybody. And then fast forward, I got a call from LSU and they asked me to teach their honors students. And I was like, I don't really want to be a professor, but I thought maybe we could go through LSU's continuing ed and teach businesses directly. And so we did that. And then we taught LSU professors. And then we kind of grew up from there. And then people kept telling me, you got to write a book. And so last year, in March of last year, after 7 or 8 months of working on it, I published Ingrain AI, which gives everybody the frameworks and everything that I'd been teaching for the last 3 years. So anyway, it's a how-to manual. It's not a why this is important manual. It teaches you how to do this in your business and how to scale it in your business and how to think differently. So, I mean, that's
I
a
love that.
long story, but that's how I got here.
I definitely love that, and I think we have a lot of similarities because I know starting out for me, um, I started in business and accounting, and I had no background in marketing and graphic design, but I transitioned and pivoted over to marketing and graphic design, and I've been in this space for over 15 years. But
Okay.
so we definitely have that similarity, and I definitely love how you're going through the process of doing it. I know locally, I go to the local college and kind of teach on AI and marketing,
Mhm.
and do a presentation about AI, saying the good, the bad, and the ugly, so
Yeah.
that people could understand those elements. But I think I definitely love the most about your you're writing the how to instead of the why.
Yeah.
Because right now me and one of my colleagues, we actually did a book called Think Outside of the Box, and we go through the process of telling a person through the vision of a marketer how you can use AI to do different case studies in your business to be successful in it. So I definitely love that because a lot of people are so scared of using AI, or they don't know how to use AI and they're doing it wrong, or they're just going to chat gbt, just giving general stuff that's not going to
Yeah.
really be
Yeah.
beneficial to them at all. So that's the biggest part, because even with prompting is a science when it comes to AI. And I don't think people really realize that when it comes to prompting, AI is just like numbers, and it's all about numbers and letters and tokens that they're piecing together to give you your output.
Mhm.
And when I think about it, like when we've been using AI for so long and don't realize it. Because I think about when I was in high school and we used to have to take tests and they had those Scantron machines
Right.
doing, doing the test. That was a form of AI, and people didn't really know that that was a form of machine learning back
Mhm.
then. So we've been using it. So we should be in a space to be comfortable on using it, even though it's evolving.
Yeah. I mean, here's what I could tell you. I think a lot of people get caught up in the mantra that AI is a predictive engine and is just trying to predict the next word in the sequence and give it to you. While that technically has merit, let's forget that for a while, because the reasoning machines, the reasoning models are incredible. And if you take the fact that it can now have some logic into what it produces, and sure, it tries to predict the next word, you have to also remember that the way it's been trained is on the world's content, and the world's content is not all good. I mean, most of the stuff that you see on the web. I mean, look, having built like you built over 2,500 websites. I think by the time I sold the company, we'd sold close to 2,000 websites ourselves. Between redesigning. What typically happens when somebody wants to save money on a website?
They
They
go
say,
in.
they say, I'll write the copy. I don't want to pay you to write. I'll
Right.
write the copy. Well, who writes the copy? The CEO. The CEO who knows nothing about marketing, but knows everything about the product. So that CEO writes some just garbage content. And so the website doesn't convert. The website doesn't really appeal to anybody. And now you've got millions of crappy websites out there with really horrible content, and AI is digesting all that and going, "Oh, this must be good."
Yeah.
So it's trying to predict the next word based on frequency, not quality.
Mhm.
So your job, if you're using AI, is not to let it give you by default what it wants to give you, but to drive excellence out of it, because you should know what excellence looks like. And if you know what excellence looks like, now all you need to do is learn how to prompt excellence out of AI. And that's a function of giving it the proper context, but it's also a function of telling it the writing style to use, how to write. I I've seen so many people, unfortunately, in our space, who profess to be AI experts, and I look at the content they put out on LinkedIn. I'm like, that's untethered AI. That's just, you know, it's noise. I saw a proposal literally last night. We have a group called Certified Ingrained AI Certified Implementers. So there are people who have been trained in our frameworks, and they're now consultants with businesses. Okay, and one of them sent me their proposal to a large organization in Louisiana, and I was reading it, and the paragraph was this long. Okay, I mean, just a massive
In the
paragraph.
proposal?
In the first paragraph, took up half a page, and I'm not talking about 14-point type. I'm talking about 11-point type, half a page, one paragraph. And the first sentence wrapped twice, and the second sentence wrapped four times before there was a period. And I
Mhm.
was like, this is the longest sentence I've ever read in my life. And when you're reading it, you're like, oh, this is so AI, because it uses, it uses $10 words when a 25-cent word will do, and the sentence structure was so complicated. I was like, oh, I mean, technically, when I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, I guess I understand what it's saying. But my conscious mind is going, damn, this is a long sentence, right? And my subconscious mind gets left behind trying to solve it. Well, my conscious mind is trying to read fast, right? And next thing you know, my subconscious mind and my conscious mind are a mile apart, and nothing I'm reading
It's
registers.
yeah, translating over. I think that's crazy. And I know like my team use AI, but one of the biggest things I do is one, the output for our AI is great, but I'm also a stickler. Like even when they're using AI, I've been using Hemingway
Yeah,
platform for years.
yeah.
So I have everybody to whatever they're creating, they put it in Hemingway and
Hmm.
make sure that there is at a specific grade level
Hmm.
and that anybody at that grade level can understand and be related to it and that the compositions of their sentences make sense
Yeah.
because with AI sometimes you can get a sentence that if I tell people if your sentence is more than 15 words it's too long.
Yeah. So let me give you some tips, okay? And I actually give you the prompts in the book. But what we do when we're telling AI how to write, we use a prompt structure that we call scalable prompt engineering. Scalable means that I can share this prompt with anybody, and they'll understand what it's doing, and it's structured in a way that people could. We have what we call containers and variables, and people could look at those containers and say, oh, if I swap this container out for that information, I can get it to do something completely different. So instead of you just paragraph prompting all the time, you have containers that tell AI what to do, and you inject your thoughts into it. So one of the key containers we have is called the style container. And the style tells the AI how to write. But unlike most of them where it says, okay, I want you to, talk in a casual voice and yada yada, we're actually calibrating this. So we have variables in there, and one of them would be sentence length, and then we would have a digital representation of what that would be. We have humor. Okay, humor we would do say 3 out of 10. Okay, AI, all of the LLMs know what 3 out of 10 means. But if you say, I want you to use a little bit of humor, they're going to be all over it in terms of what their interpretation of a little humor is. So in our style parameters, we tell it what's the sentence length, what's the paragraph structure, and the most important one is what's the reading comprehension level. And so we'll say reading comprehension level equals ninth grade or eighth grade. Now, what we don't want to do is say, write so a ninth grader would understand you. If you say write like a ninth grader would or an eighth grader would, you're going to end up with all sorts of goofy little phrases that a ninth grader would say to their classmates. You don't want that. But if you do say reading comprehension level equals ninth grade, it really lowers it down quite a bit. And sometimes we'll go eighth grade. I don't like to go sixth grade because then it gets a little too simple.
And
And
yeah,
I noticed every grade I go higher than ninth grade gets a little bit more complicated in the sentence structure. And then the other thing that you have is what we call prompt conflict. So when you're telling the AI what it's writing, those words will sometimes conflict with your writing style instructions. So, for instance, if you say, I want you to write a research report, okay, the word research tells AI, it makes AI make some inferences. So it infers what a research report would sound like. So that makes your style instructions even more important to try to temper that. If you say, if you give the AI a role and you say you're a brilliant software engineer, and now I want you to write this marketing piece. Okay, well, it's saying brilliant software engineer. I'm going to talk like a nerd, I mean, like a really sophisticated nerd, and it's going to get complicated. And so once again, you have to figure out where the conflicts are. Sometimes it's in
yeah,
what you're telling it to write, what you're telling it is, and how you're telling it to write. So you have to be aware of all those things, and that's part of what we try to teach people is look, be aware of the conflicts. But when you get it down, Rick Drika, man, the stuff that we can get it to write now, because we have that prompt stack and we put it in everything, in all of our custom GPTs and our Gemini gems, et cetera. It's already in there. So now what I produce, when I produce a sales proposal, when I produce a blog post, when I produce anything, I have a calibration there that's perfect for what I'm trying to do. Does that make sense? So it's
it
simple.
definitely does. I do that with Claude. I train it through projects, and I put
Mhm.
that main thing in there. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is because of the different platforms of AI and how those tokens are used. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Like the word research and not saying what exactly you're supposed to be doing and how
Mhm.
they can conflict, because again, it's tokens that are being pieced together to give you an output. And if you don't have those different variables put together for your prompt, you're not going to get the results that you want. And then even with that, different AI platforms are created for different purposes. So
Mhm.
even if you use the same prompt on all the platforms, your output would not be the same thing because of
Yeah.
the purpose that's behind the AI. And a lot of people expect to get the same output regardless of
Mhm.
what platform they're on.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest things of understanding that, because you have to tell it who you are, what's your expectations that
Mhm.
you want to go in, and the why, or what you want it to, the results or outcome to look like.
Yeah.
And right now AI has gotten so advanced, you can give it examples, and a lot of people don't leverage that.
Yeah. No, that's for true for sure. You know, the other thing I like when you talk about the different models. So let's just take ChatGPT versus Claude versus Gemini versus Grok. They all have strengths, and
Right.
the way I try to coach people is, look, it's time that you start thinking of AI like it's another person, not like it's another piece of software.
Right.
Because if you see it as another person, then you realize I have to give this better instructions, right? I have to communicate with this, give it enough context so it can do its job. But if
Hmm.
you get like a piece of software where you're just pushing a couple of buttons and something happens, things are going to go off the rails. But like another person, each one of these things, Claude has its own strengths, and and ChatGPT does, right? So you need to know what those strengths are so that you use the right tool for the right job. I mean, it's only $20 a month,
Right.
and I mean, man, if I mean, think about it. Yeah. So right now, I hate to even think about what our subscriptions are because we have team versions of everything, and it's ridiculous. But we have a team version for just about everything, right?
Hmm.
But we know, for instance, when it comes to copywriting, like you said, you love Claude, right? I love Claude for copywriting. I am absolutely in love with Claude's Opus 4.6. It is amazing. Yay, though it's expensive. All right. So I was writing something. So I was actually using. Have you ever done any vibe coding? You know, like I was building an application on Lovable, but I was using Claude to write the prompt for Lovable because it was a pretty sophisticated application I was asking it to build. I figure I can kind of control it that way. So I was doing this over the weekend, and I got to the point where Claude said, "Okay, you're done for the month." I'm like, "It is only February the 2nd," and is like, "You're tapped out for the month." I'm like, not only was I tapped out for the month, but my entire team was tapped out for the month. So, and we pay $300 a month for a team license, you know. So I had to go in and put my little credit card in and say, "Okay, just take what you want." Let me know how much it's going to be. I know here's the cap that I want to put on it. And I kid you not, Rodrika, it was every hour and a half, I would get an email with an invoice that said I owed it another 11 bucks. And I mean, this went on for 2 days. And I was like, this is the most expensive application. But having been a developer for the last 25 years, I'm looking at it, and what I just produced in 2.5 days would have taken my team, two of my top developers, 2 weeks to just write a design specification. And it would have taken 6 weeks for them to get an MVP out. And I built the entire thing in 2.5 days. And, when I want to change something, I just say, all right, I need to change this. And I sit there and watch. And 3 minutes later, it works.
But I definitely agree with you with that, Claude. I love Claude, and I can honestly say, like, even with websites, when we're building them for people, something that usually take us a week on creating a WordPress site now probably takes us half a day.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. No, I wish I had that when I was doing the whole agency because we could have done a lot better than we did. But I love the
Eh,
copywriting aspect of it. I mean, that's the part that now we could tell a client, well, you write what you want to write. We'll polish it up, you know, and then we can do it. But it's pretty potent. And so how have you done much with like Opus 4.6? I know they just launched Sonnet 4.6. Now I don't know when this will get published, but by then maybe Sonnet 5's out. But
So I kind of go back and forth. So I do use Claude a lot. Then I still use ChatGPT, but for ChatGPT, I only more so use it for like emails,
hmm
because I have it connected to our email accounts to make sure that it's responding to certain emails and putting in drafts so we can like log in periodically and send those drafts out.
oh, cool.
But um more so our main platforms that we use are ChatGPT, Claude, and then we also use Copilot because we have the Microsoft license as
Yeah.
well.
hmm
And I can honestly say, as team, like for a team platform, using Copilot is better than the individual because you have more research aspect
hmm
bandwidth with it, but also with the team you get where it shares prompts with everyone, so whatever prompt that's being used is automatically saved for everyone to be used and trained on for that GPT.
That's
So
cool.
that's one of the things I do like for teams, but the other ones I really haven't gotten too much into. I like Gemini, but for Gemini, I feel like for everything that you do on Gemini, you have to still prompt it every time to get a great output.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if you train it at the beginning, you still I feel like sometimes it starts hallucinating very quickly.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you're doing. Like if you're building, if you have a Gemini gem, it performs just like a project, in the other tools. But the thing that I like about Gemini is its integration with VO3 and whatever, what's it called? Bananarama? No, that's a band, but Nano Banana. That's pretty cool. The Nano Banana image generation is amazing. VO3 is really, really good. So is Sora and ChatGPT. But I also like when I have a whole lot of stuff that I want to analyze and dig through and pull out information, I'm going to Notebook LM and
Yeah,
then I'll
I
pull
definitely
that up.
love Notebook LM.
Yeah.
I use Notebook LM more so for research.
Yeah.
So research is Notebook LM and Perplexity because I love Perplexity's
Mhm.
footnotes so that I can
Yeah.
make sure that the research is valid. Um, Gemini is great with image development. Is I would say it's number 3 on my list right now.
Mhm.
The one that surprised me the most was Microsoft image generation. If you
Hmm.
prompt it the right way, it does amazing with image generation.
Whose
Um,
model, I wonder, are they using? Because I
I
have
don't
not.
know, but I use the smart one is the smart option, and I definitely know like it looks like someone did a graphic design image. Like our book cover
Mhm.
with the AI Microsoft Copilot helped us to really design that faster than what we expected because it has a person that looks humanistic, and he's made out of puzzle pieces, and then there are pieces of the puzzle that's coming outside of his head, and
Really?
because the book is called Think Outside of the Box, so he looks like
Mm,
a human robot but he's made up of puzzle pieces, and those pieces are symbolic to elements of business.
that's
And
clever.
that image, Microsoft helped us to develop that image. And it maybe only took us an hour to get Microsoft to give us great output.
Yeah.
And they gave us it was 4 different images that we went through to vote upon. And then I also, Microsoft also has the Microsoft Designer. It's similar to Canva, but it does great with image generation too. And then sometimes I play with Adobe Firefly. But a lot of people like Mid Journey, but I feel like Mid Journey has too much of a learning curve for business owners who are just getting out and don't fully
Mhm.
understand graphic design.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they all have some merit, but they all have their own layers of complexity and stuff. But I mean, it's like I was saying earlier. If you don't know what excellence looks like, you're always going to get average or less out of AI. And if your domain expertise is graphic design, at least you know what excellence looks like and you can push AI to get it, but you'll know a lot faster which tools can get you there and which ones can't. Now, the one thing you might be able to share with me, I'm waiting for an image design AI tool that can actually take the image that it creates and turn it into a vector file that I could go manage inside of Illustrator. But most of them just create PNGs or JPEGs. I haven't found one that'll create a vector image. Have you?
Um, Not really. So sometimes Copilot would make it similar to where it's almost a vector, but they don't really give you a vector file because right now when AI creates something outside of a Word document or PDF, it's like a permanent file and
Yeah.
it has its own unique code that's aligned with it in that
Hmm.
file. So I think that's the part of it because they try to make sure that to cover that copyright issue kind of thing
Hmm.
going on with AI. So I haven't really seen a platform that will really turn it into like a vector file like that.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I mean, it's hard enough to get Illustrator to try to turn an image into paths, without it just messing it up. You can run the trace thing on it, but it doesn't quite make it perfect. But I've created a couple of things that I'm like, man, I would really like to scale this up without it pixelating, and you have to do that with a vector. But
I
one day,
know. So for me, what I do is so that all of my images from AI are good. I make sure I tell it that I want it to have a specific DPI on the image that it's creating,
mhm,
so that it's high resolution. So whenever you're doing it, for high resolution, you need a DPI of 500 or higher. So I typically tell AI to make sure that whatever file it gives me has a DPI of 500 or higher so that it will be high resolution. Cuz then if you
okay,
put it on anything else or you stretch it, it's not going to be pixelated.
yeah, no, that's a good point. Pushing
Yeah.
it to 500 DPI is a good idea. Well, there you go. I'm learning something.
So that's my biggest thing that I do when it comes to that. That's so we don't run into like options of it being too small or having to do a lot of recreation of things.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. What kind of images are you creating with it?
We create a lot of the social media images right now. We've been playing around with AI, seeing what kind of outputs that it'll do by us giving it the captions that we want to use. So
Hmm.
we've been creating captions and then giving AI the captions and having AI to create the post from based off of that caption. So that's what we're currently playing around with.
Gotcha. Yeah. And when you write a blog post, um, do you then ask it for ideas for a featured image, or do you just kind of know yourself, or how do you generate a featured image?
So I really haven't used AI to more so generate feature images for the blog post. It's either something event we went through to or photos that's been shared with us when we're doing blog posts. Um, I would probably do that down the road for a feature image, but right now we because we have like that file of stock photos and different events, we more so just pull from that.
Okay. Yeah, I hate to say it, but we canned all of our subscriptions to to those deals. What do we used to use? And we've used Getty, we use 123RF, we use several of those things that have, um, what do you call it, licensed images or royalty free images. Now everything is generated with AI. And I,
Well,
I have a, go
I
ahead.
feel like AI is great with image generation,
Mhm.
but because so many people don't know how to use image generation when it comes to AI, you can look at it and tell that it's AI.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I would like for us, I would rather have true photos
Mhm.
than AI generated photos for for specific stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of go back and forth. I mean, like if we're able to go take a shoot, then we'll shoot our own photography. But sometimes I'm just like, I got an idea. I can't find it in stock photography. And so I'll just prompt it out of AI and it comes off pretty good. You know, now it just depends on which model you're using.
Yeah.
But, if you tell it to, like sometimes you don't, like Mid Journey, you don't necessarily have to tell it to use, to make a photorealistic image of blah. You can do a lot of other things, but you can prompt it. You could literally tell it what camera it's using, what aperture setting it's using, what angle it's using, what the sunlight angle is. You can put all those settings in there. What the f-stop setting is. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff in there. And man, when it pulls it together, it's like, ooh, that's pretty cool. But
So and you're right. So I've done that when a lot of times when editing client photos for like headshots and things.
mhm,
So I've got our AI trained. So if I upload the client photos and I want all the photos edited, it will run across all of those photos and then I tell it the lens, the camera, the lighting and things like that. So I do that more so with like the photography side of photo edits, but not
mhm,
just for um personal use
yeah,
for that.
okay. I know that I have several people that we work with that have used, and I personally have used it too. I'll upload 5 images of myself
Hmm.
or a staff member, and I'll do this in ChatGPT or in Gemini, and then I'll tell it to make a different shot. Could be that it's a professional headshot or something else. And it does a really remarkable job. 8 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, 3 times out of 10, you're like, that doesn't look like who I started with.
Yeah,
But
because I know, like, and that's the thing I was saying previously, like with Gemini, and when you're doing like photo edits with Gemini, every time you do it, you need to
yeah,
re-upload the original picture just so because afterwards, if you're trying to re-edit a previous picture, it's not gonna really tweak that previous picture and it starts getting away from
yeah,
it and hallucinates a lot.
yeah.
So, like with Gemini, you definitely have to say keep these facial features and specific things like that
Mhm.
when you first upload the examples because Gemini is great when it does do great output, but you
Mhm.
just have to know how to work with it
Yeah.
and how to prompt Gemini correctly to get the best feedback.
What's I would hate to be Photoshop right now. But I ran a test. So I have a big offset smoker. Um, and I was taking a picture of it because what I wanted to do was take a picture of it. I'm a big barbecue nut, and I make my own barbecue sauce for friends. And so we have this thing every Mardi Gras that we call Pork Palooza, which my daughters bring a bunch of their friends over, and we barbecue a whole lot of pork. Well, I thought, well, this year, every year I give them a bottle of barbecue sauce, and I thought, well, this year it'll be fun if I put a label on it. So I go into these AI tools and I'm starting to make a label. So I gave it a picture myself, and I told it to do something. The next thing you know, I'm in this leather apron. I'm like, oh, that looks pretty cool. And then I thought, well, let me see if I can't put my own barbecue pit behind me on the label. None of them could do that effectively. Um, but what I did was I took a picture of the barbecue pit, and then I told it to remove the background. And I went to Photoshop, Gemini, and ChatGPT, and it was interesting. I'm like, in seconds, it removed the background. I mean, you remember in the old days, you'd have to do all kind of stuff
Yeah,
inside of Photoshop to get that background out. You'd be working on
you
it
don't
for
have to do
hours.
none
You'd
of
get
that
zooming
now.
in and taking out pixels. In seconds, it pulled out the background. And um, I believe the one I ended up using I think it was I think it was actually ChatGPT, and I thought it would be Gemini. The only reason I use ChatGPT is because it left more detail in a couple things. Like I have this silver stainless steel tray that comes out from the pit, and I have these hooks underneath it. And Gemini left one hook but got rid of the other two. And ChatGPT left all the hooks in there. I'm like, oh, that's some serious attention to detail, you know? That was kind of crazy. But then once I did that, I was able to put the image behind me. But it was kind of a fun thing, just trying to see which one could get that background out. But
Now
Photoshop didn't do it well.
another
Pardon me.
one that does I was gonna say another one that a lot of people don't realize that does great with background image remover that's built in now is Canva.
Really?
Hmm.
Because Canva keeps telling me, they keep shooting me emails. We just added this AI feature and this added, and I was like,
They're
I
gr-
just haven't gotten into it.
their AI is growing tremendously. The edit they have edits for doing videos now and for photos, and they even
Wow,
have a section where you can generate a AI image in Canva to use that image on whatever you're creating.
really? Okay. I guess I'll
Yeah.
have to give it another look. I'm trying to get away from all that stuff. Let my team do it. I love playing with it, but that's not it doesn't help the business grow if I'm messing around with the toys. So
Well, it's for me, and this is what I tell all business owners. I understand that you have to be in CEO mode because
mhm,
that's me stepping back and allowing my team to do a lot of the work.
yeah,
But how can you I tell people, how can you effectively train and tell your team what to do if you don't know how it works?
right.
So I spend my time playing around with it, knowing how it works, so I can know how long it takes me to work on something. So if I tell you to do something and I do it effectively in this time frame, and you're not being able to accomplish those things within that time frame, then we need to sit down and figure out what's going on or what's
Mhm,
wrong.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that because most of the CEOs that call us are in that zone where they're like, I know that everybody underneath me knows how to use this better than I do. I need to hurry up and get up to speed. How can you help me understand it? And then there's I would say most of them also say in the same breath, I just need to understand it. I don't need to do everything. So we have this thing that we call the 10 levels of AI mastery. And they're all like, I just need to get to level 3. I need everybody else to get to level 7 or 8 or 9. I just need to know what's capable in those levels. I just don't need to be the one that does it. That way I can make sure it gets done. Like I learned programming in college. Okay. That was back when you had to use punch cards to write a line of code. That was crazy. You'd grab a deck of cards and hand it to somebody. They would run the deck of cards through the machine, and then you'd wait a little bit, and then they would give you your printout. It was nuts. And it wasn't until the year I graduated that they came up with a little terminal that you could type in your lines of code. I'm like, where were you, a year ago? But my point is that I knew enough about programming to tell a developer that it could be done. I didn't know how to get it done, you know, because that wasn't my job. That's not. In other words, I'm hiring somebody to be better than me at something, and I'm not hiring somebody so that I can do their job. Right? I'm trying to take a hat off of me as I scale my business. But every time I try to take a hat off, I need to make sure that person is actually better. I think CEOs fail when they want that person to be less than them so they can feel like they're still the authority. I don't want that. I want somebody who is better than me, but I want to know enough to where I know if they tell me it can't be done, I usually say, well, there is a programmer somewhere that can do this.
Right. And I
Fine.
totally agree
Right.
with you on that. That my biggest thing is one, knowing how your business functions in and out so
Mhm.
that you can see where bottlenecks are possibly coming through your business. But not only that, what I've learned for working with a lot of small business owners, who come to me is there are a lot of people flocking to like the marketing, the digital marketing and social media space, saying that they're social media managers or they're copywriters and different things like that. And then or ad managers, and people are paying them a lot of money, and these people have no experience, don't know what they're doing. And I'd be like, I one of my first questions was, how did you vet this company before working with them?
Yeah.
And they just have chaos when they come to us, and we have to try to help them figure a lot of stuff out. So that's my biggest part of it, because once I know you know how to do it, it's fully going onto your plate to take it off
Right.
of my plate. um but I definitely make sure I stay updated and know all the different things that are going on and changing, so that I don't be like, oh, well, this is what we need to be doing. And then our company are behind on certain things that are pivoting and changing as well. And that's another thing that I hate with business owners who they stay so far behind, and then they wonder why they're getting a bottleneck. And
Right.
my biggest reference for that, most of the time I think about blockbuster movies. When Netflix came out, they went join Netflix, and then because of that, they just completely phased out.
Right. Yeah. What was it? They could have bought Netflix, I think, for like $10 million or something
Yeah, and would
ridiculous like
not
that,
do
and they
it.
said no, which is the dumbest thing ever. Right.
And
Fatal mistake.
then Netflix also tried to partner with Redbox, and Redbox wouldn't do it. And lo
Yeah.
and behold, they start.
Right.
So yeah, just
Yeah. I don't know how they didn't see that was the future, you know? I mean, when Netflix went to the streaming model, I was like, this is where it's all going. I mean, and for them to not acquire Netflix and to stay there, I thought, well, then maybe they're developing their own, kind of like Walmart and Amazon, right? Walmart started to develop their own tech. Walmart already had distribution in play, but Amazon still blew by them because Amazon started to sell its infrastructure. It would build infrastructure for itself, but then they would license that infrastructure, which is what AWS is, right?
right.
Walmart didn't do that, but Walmart is still doing pretty doggone well. But at least they didn't go, this whole web thing, forget about it.
That's definitely what you don't want to do as a business owner, and even with marketing. And
Mhm.
I definitely encourage people nowadays, learn the basics of AI, because AI is not going anywhere, and it's
Yeah.
definitely going to continue to evolve.
Yeah. No, I mean, that there is absolutely no way AI isn't the future. And the problem I think most people are missing is just how fast the technology is changing. The thing that I would tell you that most of the larger consulting firms are missing is, first of all, they're missing how slow it is for people to adopt to this, because they see it as a software change, and it's not. It's a very significant paradigm shift in how people work, which makes it a change management issue, not a software adoption issue. And when you go into a large organization and you tell somebody, we're not doing it that way anymore, we're doing it this way, there's a whole lot of, no, I know how to do it my way. I don't want to learn another way. And then there's the fear of, well, if I learn it your way, then I won't have a job because it'll do it better than me. So there's going to be a very, that, and the fact that the technology is moving faster than the security that can contain it, I think that's going to slow adoption of certain layers of complexity, right? And so, when I go back to the 10 layers of AI mastery, the 9 and 10 are more agentic management, where you're building autonomous agents. The security is not there at the enterprise level to manage autonomous agents. And that's a scary thing, especially if you're familiar with the whole open claw thing. That's a scary issue that has to be addressed. So I think you're going to see adoption kind of slow. And the other thing is, to me, adoption isn't having one AI application in the organization. We have a
Mhm.
chatbot. Okay, that's not
Yeah.
adoption. That's a test drive. That's a dipping your toe in the water thing. Adoption is where every one of your people is using AI with their own fingertips, building their own tools, accelerating their own jobs. That is adoption. That's where you really get some ROI. But I think we need to get people to realize, unlike using a PC, this one, you can do it really quickly just by asking it a question. But that's also a bit of a mirage. Just because you can ask it a question and get an answer back doesn't mean you're a genius. It means you know how to ask a question. The key is, can you get it to do these other things really fast and accurate and without hallucination, at the level of excellence your company expects. That takes training. And if you don't train people, we've found it takes them 19 to 24 months to get to what we would call level 6 or 7, if you leave them to their own devices. And at that point, they've got new bad habits, new mistakes that you have to overcome. That's where I think people get off the rails. They really need to understand this is here to stay, but the businesses that learn how to use it are they're going to be the ones that capitalize on it, and the ones that don't. Like, I just read something literally yesterday that 98% of businesses have recognized less than a 4% increase in productivity by using AI over the last 3 years. Well, that's because they're not using it right, So there's a whole lot of stuff people are missing. But I know,
I I definitely agree with you on that, and I feel that one of the biggest things, especially with that piece where you're saying people are in fear of AI replacing them. I don't think AI is meant to replace people, but I feel that it's meant to enhance things. And what it is going to force people to do is to think critically in order to take businesses to the next level. Because if you can't think critically in order to prompt AI, then you're
Mhm.
not going to be able to use the enhancements of AI.
I think you really touched on a nerve with a lot of people with that, because most people who are using AI are losing their ability to think critically. And so, what you just touched on is there's an urgent need to make sure people are trained to think critically while they're using AI. Because what happens is they get used to AI. They first of all, they think AI is all knowing, all telling, because it's been educated on the world's content and it gets you instant access. That makes them a little bit, I don't know, maybe insecure, and maybe over reliant on it. And so they stop thinking critically. And so thinking critically is going to be, I think, one of the key things that people in the AI upskilling space like ours need to be focused on, making sure those skills stay sharp and even get sharper as you
Mhm.
use AI, because that's a skill you don't want to atrophy, and it's easy to make that happen. I mean, I've seen it in my own self. I've seen it in my own employees, where you start to abdicate your intelligence to AI because it gives you
The
so
answer
much
so
information
quickly.
so quickly. You're like,
Hmm.
you know. But then when you start to, when if you just take a deep breath, stop, and read it, you realize, oh, you still need my help, you know and that's what I think is the big paradigm shift in how we work, because we've gone from this, where we're the ones who are doing all the thinking, we're the ones doing all the executing, to now all of a sudden this machine apparently is doing all the thinking and the executing, and then we feel like, oh, all we have to do is just tell it to do it. And then you stop, you go, oh, that was so fast, this has got to be better than anything I could come up with. But like I was telling you with that monster paragraph that guy built, I'm like, dude, if you had just stopped and started to think critically and read it, you would realize that what it produced was a whole lot of very hard to read information that would not do what you wanted it to do, which is sell your product, right? So, anyway, that would be, I love what you brought up. I think that's a key thing. Critical thinking is something that people can't abdicate, they have to sharpen. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it definitely makes sense. And I know like for our team, that's why I make sure we do weekly or daily team meetings so that when we're using AI, we're still using that human perspective of things. And I tell people in on the team, we can use 80 AI 80% of the time, but we still need to have at least 20% of human thoughts in the
Yeah.
mix of it. And they look at me as like 20. I was like, you'll get it later on. So I definitely make sure that we go through that. And part of us doing it is if we get something out and we rate it on how well AI gave us information, I go through like the seven whys of why this would be good or why should we
Hmm.
keep it like this or why should we change it
Hmm.
so that they're thinking critically on it.
Yeah. Brilliant. That's good stuff.
Well, John, it was great having you on this show today. You gave us a wealth of knowledge, especially on prompting and even talking about the different aspects of AI. And I feel like today has really kind of been like a master class for the listeners, so that they'll know the different platforms, how to use the platforms and the use cases of a variety of platforms. And for those listeners who are out there that may want to connect with you, or even get your book, can you let them know how to connect with you or get your book?
Sure. Yeah. Well, a couple things. First of all, the book is just called Ingrain AI, and it's available on Amazon. Second of all, I'm in the process of writing an add-on book to the first book.
Okay.
It'll be called Ingrain AI with another subtitle. Don't know what that is yet. Uh, I'll let you know. But if they go to ingrain.ai/2026
Okay.
and they fill in the request and they tell me they heard about us through your podcast, that puts them on the waiting list for the second book, and I'll give them a digital copy of the book for free as long as I know they came from your podcast. So that's it. If they go to ingrain.ai/2026, the slash 2026 is putting pressure on me to hurry up and finish the book. So anyway,
I love it. Well, thank you again, John, for being on a part of the show. And to all of our wonderful listeners, I look forward to having you to continue to support this podcast. And please let us know if there are any subjects or topics that you would want us to discuss, because there are a lot of people who are experts in the field of AI. I'm not the only person who knows things about AI. We have great experts to hop on the show, like John. So until next time, stay improving yourself and enjoy your business journey.